Welcome to Slaying Excel Dragons video number 30. Hey, these are the videos that accompany the book, and we're still talking chapter 5. We have a great video here about the index and match functions for unusual lookup. And like some of the last few videos that I've done, we're going to look at all the examples in the book and a few other examples that are not in the book. We will look at two-way lookup to look up a number, two-way lookup to look up a cell reference, index to create a dynamic range, lookup left, look up supplier name with a low bid, look up a whole column, because sometimes you want to add a particular column, a whole row. And finally, we'll see our last lookup function, choose, because sometimes when you're doing a lookup, you have different tables you need to look up. All right, our workbook. excelisfun start. If you're watching this video at YouTube, click on the link below the video. Otherwise, go to the DVD that came with the book. All right, we're going to start off with two-way lookup. Now, we've already actually seen this. We actually did a VLOOKUP and match for two-way lookup. But we're going to use index and match for a two-way lookup. It'll just be a nice way to introduce ourselves to how the index function works. And then we will see a bunch of other examples. Now, here's our situation. We have a tax table. We want to be able to select, say, product 2, 8,000, right? Here's our tax bracket. Here's our particular product, and there it is. There's a 1.4 tax rate that we need to look up there. So we need, in essence, a row number from here and a column number to tell us, right? So if I type in 3,500 here, I need to go to this row here, this column here, because I have product 2, and deliver that tax rate to this cell right here. All right, we're going to start off, since we need a column number and a row number for two-way lookup, we're going to go ahead and do that here in the cells. And of course, we probably already guessed how we're going to do this with the match function. So equals match. Match, lookup value. Well, the column, these are column values, so I'm going to say, hey, look there. Lookup value, comma, within what range? Right there. And these are words. And so we're looking up an exact match. I'm going to type comma, and in the third argument match type, I'm going to say exact match 0. 2. So yeah, it's the 2. If we change this to 3, better give us 3. All right, now let's do match again for the row number. And this time, guess what? Our lookup value is going to be some dollar amount. And notice we don't have an exact match here. We need this 3,500. We need the match to go racing down the column, bump into the first bigger number, and then jump back. Remember, that's how we learned how approximate match works when we talked about VLOOKUP. Well, it's the same for match. So our lookup value is going to be that. Our lookup array is going to be this. Now remember, in essence, anytime you're doing approximate match, there's gaps between. So this 3,500 needs to fit between these two, right? It's assigned to this row, though. So there we have it, comma, and not exact, but 1. Now 1 and 0, these two arguments here for match are exactly the way VLOOKUP works. This one is the only one that's different. The table would have to be sorted descending, and it would find the first smallest value and then bump back a row. All right, so I'm going to put a 1. Oh, if we go up to help, you know, I can't drag this out of the way here. But you can see those square brackets. That means that one's optional. The default is, just like with VLOOKUP, approximate match. So I'm going to actually leave it out like that. Close parentheses. All right, so we have 3, 3. Now I'm going to type in 7, 6, 0, 0. All right, so now we got it working all right. Now we simply come over here, and here's how index works. Index, we say index. And there's two screen tips here. This one right here has a different argument right here. And it's for when you have multiple lookup tables. Now, I'm never going to use this one because there's a better way to look up tables. So we're always stuck within this one. You just need to give it the array. And it's the whole table, not including the row labels and column labels. Just that whole table. And look at this. The rest of the arguments are just, hey, give me the row number and the column number. So we already have the row number, boop, comma, boop. And that's it. That is how index works. Now, index can look up just a single row or just a column if you give it just, a column of values or a row of values here. But in most cases, that array is going to be a table because its specialty is two-way lookup. All right, you ready? Close parentheses, and there it is. Let's go ahead and test it. I'm going to type 2,000. And there it is. The 2,000 went bumped into the 3,000, came back to this row. The product 3 went over and got that intersecting value whoosh, right down here. Now, oftentimes you do not want to waste real estate with that. So guess what? That cell reference is looking there, and that cell reference is looking there. We can simply scoop the formulas out of these cells. We can scoop them out in edit mode and then paste them into our formula. Now, this is a great technique as you're learning how to build more complicated formulas. Create your formula in pieces and then mash it all together at the end. Now I'm going to show you a cool trick for mashing formula elements together. I'm going to put this into edit mode, F2. And I'm going to, in edit mode, copy. But watch this. I'm not going to go Control C. I'm going to go Control CC. Oh, it opens up the clipboard. Now I'm going to clear all. Close this. CC in 2007 and 2010 versions of Excel, you actually have to turn that option on down here. In earlier version, it just is the default. If you need to get to this to turn it on, then where do you go? Do you go to Home and right there? All right, Control CC. I love that. When I'm doing big formulas and I need to collect the different pieces, boom. So that's going to be our column. Escape. And then come down here, edit mode, Control C, escape. I got my two formula elements. Now I can come over here, F2. Oh, now I got to remember which one is which. The C12 is looking right there. OK, so this one right here is going to be for the column number. So I'm going to come right here, double click, just like in Word when you double click a word. It highlights the whole word. In a formula, if you double click the cell, it highlights the whole cell. I'm going to go like that. Oh, that's so cool. Double click that. OK, hopefully I got it right. If it's not, I'll have to edit it. Control Enter. All right, let's test it. Product 1, and I'm going to say 10,000. Because remember, the way approximate looks up, if it goes through the whole table and can't find any number bigger, it just takes the last one. And there it is. 1.4. I'm going to change the value to 6,000. Exactly right on. There it is, 1.2. Change this to product 5. All right, so that's two-way lookup. Let's go. Now, what did we do here? We did two-way lookup to look up a number. Now, we're going to scroll over here, and we're going to repeat that. We're going to do two-way lookup to look up a number. But then we're going to do something super fancy. So this, in essence, we're going to do two things here. We're going to practice doing two-way lookup for numbers. And then once we got our formulas here, we're actually going to see how to look up a cell reference and learn why you would want to look up the cell reference instead of the number. All right, I'm going to highlight here and try Alt-WG to zoom in. All right, there are. I have it said start cell, end cell, but that's our second part. All I want to do is look up product 1, February. So I need to get this number and dump it in this cell. Well, I can do that. I could say equals index. And guess what? This time, we're going to build our formula, not in pieces in the cell, but all the way in our cell. We're going to have index and two match functions. All right, the array, comma. The row number. Now remember, I need to get a row number here. I know match is perfect for that, so I'm just going to type it out. Match. What am I looking up? Product, comma, within this, comma, and 0, because this is an exact match. Now look at this. I just love the way this works. I'm in the middle of match. There's my screen tip. As soon as I put a close parentheses, it jumps back to index. And that's very helpful when you're building a big formula like this. All right, so now it's telling me the thing I just put in there is row number, and now I need to type a comma. And now I'm going to do column number, and I'm going to do another match. Except for I'm going to get that one, comma, over here. And you could see right here it's telling me what the match function needs. I got my lookup array, so I'm going to type comma, and match type is 0. Now I close parentheses. I'm back to index. I can just close off this parenthesis right here. It's reminding me I just put the column number in, close parentheses. Did it work? Yes, it did. Now, let's think about this. I actually want to copy this over here. And notice our row input and column input here are in the cells, same as they were here. So I'm going to put this formula into edit mode, F2. Oh, so all I need to do is lock this. Now, I should have been smart and locked this as I was creating the formula. Because as we've seen before, all you have to do is hit F4 one time when you're editing your formula. Now I'm going to add $, so I have to literally click in K4 and F4, and then in N9 and F4. So when you go back to edit it later, it's not quite as polite. All right, I'm going to click there, F4, click there, F4, click there, F4, click there, F4. So all the lookup ranges are locked down in both directions. But now, this one and this one are looking 2 below. So when I enter this formula, copy it, and paste it here, it works just fine. You can see when I put it in edit mode, it's looking at M13 and M14. Exactly right on. Now, we just did a two-way lookup to look up an intersecting value. So product 5, April is 17. This formula looks up a number. But now, let's just imagine your goal was you wanted a dynamic range here to add. So I'm going to scroll up here. Maybe I have to change the zoom a little bit. 190 maybe. Nope. I need to change it to, oh, how about this, right? Our little keyboard shortcut. Alt-WG. Our goal in this cell is to add from this cell all the way to this cell. Here's the range. We can see an estimate down here of 262. But we want to be able to have this range change as we change inputs. So for example, if I change this to product 3, the index match here is picking up that number. And I want it to go, and this one is getting that number. But down here in this formula, I want a range to change from here to here. So what I've done is I've changed this, the start cell, to this, just by selecting a different product. Is that possible? Now here's the amazing thing. It's actually virtually it's the exact same formula to look up a cell reference, except for you have to put the formula in the context of a cell reference. Now let me show you what I mean by that. If we were going to do this by hand, right, equals, let's change this right here to product 1. We would go like this, equals SUM, and what's the first cell reference? It's L4. So I would type L4, and watch this. You type a colon. Now, as soon as you type a colon, right, you then click I'm going to type it just to emphasize this point. I'm going to type N8. N8. Now notice what separates this cell reference and this, the colon. And the colon will tell our index function, you are no longer allowed to look up a number. You are now going to look up a cell reference. It's that simple. So if we take that big, huge formula there and paste it where that L4 is, and take that big, huge formula there, the big, huge formula from there, and paste it where that And 8 is the fact that the two formula elements are separated by a colon. They won't return numbers. They'll return the cell references. So let's see how to do this. I'm going to click Escape because I need to go copy these. Now notice the clipboard, you can say Clear All. And I'm going to come up here. And this is going to be our starting cell. So I'm going to Control C. Actually, I'm going to Clear All. And I'm not going to include that equal sign. Not equal sign, Control C. So that one's going to be Start, Escape, Control C. So that one's the start, that one's the end. Escape. I come down here, equals SUM. Start. Now let me scroll way down here. And colon. As soon as we type a colon, that index is programmed to not deliver the number, but instead deliver the cell reference. And now I'm going to say end. Totally amazing. Now that's a big, huge, nasty formula. But this is a very common situation where people want, in essence, they want a dynamic range. All right, I'm going to highlight this and hit F9 just to show you. Look at that. It's it's showing me all the numbers from there to there. Look at that. Exactly right. And notice the array syntax. We don't need to know this, but there's comma, comma, which means column. So it went 12 to 25 to 12, 12 to 25 to 12. And then the semicolon means now go down to the next row and get 18, 12, 17, 18, 12, 17. All right, I'm going to Control Z because I want to leave that there and enter. You got to be kidding me. Is this really going to work? Watch this. I'm going to highlight from here to here. Remember our trick? We can check our formulas by looking down there. It is 262. That's amazing. Now let's try it. This dynamic range, this is so exciting. I'm going to change it to product 3. It's got 166. I got my fingers crossed. 166. And you can change the end cell too. So I'm going to change it to product 4. And I'm going to change it to March. So that would be like from here to here. 71. Now, this is just one of many examples. People use dynamic ranges for adding. They use them in lookup functions. They use them in charts all over the place. Dynamic ranges using index. And it all came down to that little colon. Instead of numbers, the colon says, hey, return cell references. All right, so that's two-way lookup for a number. We saw how to do it with a number and a cell reference. Now let's go on to our next. Click on the sheet I2 for index 2. Hey, this is a common situation here. What if we need to look up something to the left? So here's our situation. We're selling boomerangs. And we have a customer that comes in and says, hey, I want a boomerang that flies out 40 meters. We want to instantly look this item up in this column. Hey, but wait a second. This is like the column on the right. VLOOKUP can't handle that. And then from this lookup value, we need to return product and price. So we need to look something up here and return something from here and here. No problem. VLOOKUP can't handle it, but index and match can. Equals index. The array, well, where are the items that we want to look through and return to the cell? Product, so it's the product column. Now, when I copy this formula over, I want that dancing ants to move to price, so I'm not going to lock them at all. Comma. Now the row number. No problem. We can get the row number from this range here. And by the way, the beautiful thing about indexes and match is this range can be orientated vertically like this or horizontally. And it can be anywhere. It can be anywhere on this sheet, or you could even have it on other sheets using either sheet references or defined names. All right, we know that match function can get us our row number. So lookup value, it's going to be this one, comma. Notice we're in the match screen tip within this right here. And I'm going to hit F4 to lock this to the side. Now, wait a second. That reminds me. All right, let's finish this off. Comma 0, because we're looking up words, exact match. I can already tell this formula won't work because why? When I copy this over here, the green box will move. And I want it locked on the column reference because I'm copying across the column. So F4 3 times. That's it. That's the formula. All we need is a row reference. Now, in our last couple examples, we saw two-way lookup. But here we see clearly index is beautiful. It can do two-way, and it can do one-way. And the lookup value that tells us the relative position can be orientated vertically or horizontally. I'm going to close parentheses right here. Notice those square brackets. It tells us that that argument is not necessary if you know the defaults. Control Enter. Oh, so a Majestic Butte goes 40. And I'm going to copy this over. Notice I have it indented so I can accommodate that little drop down. I'm going to copy this over, and I'm immediately going to point to the smart tag and say fill without formatting. All right, so the Bellin is 20. Change this to 20 meters. We got the Carlota at 23. All right, that's lookup left. Let's go look at some other examples on I3 for index 3. Here's another great example. We have vendors. And here's all of our products. And we have asked each of them to submit bids. And we want for each product the name of the vendor. Now, I already did the min function and then copied it down. So the min for each one of these, it looks through these values and gives me the smallest value. But what do I really want to do in this cell? I want to say, hey, lookup function, whatever it is, take this value, go over and find the value here, but then give me the column header, the vendor name. So down here, look up this 4693. It needs to look this up in 4 cells, right? The range of bids are in 4 cells. So we find this, return the name vendor1. Index and match can do this perfectly. Equals index. Where are the values that we want to return to the cell? Values meaning whatever's in the cell. Well, it's here. Our goal is to get the vendor name in this column. Now, guess what? When I copy this down, that is going to be locked. I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock it, comma, and the row number. Look, even though this one's locked, as we copy the formula down, we can look through each one of our 4 cells, which is in a row, and tell the match function, hey, look up the min. So we're going to use in row match. The screen tip changes. Lookup value, oh, the low bid, and that's a relative cell reference. So as we go down, it's always looking at whatever the min function found, comma, lookup array. These are going to be relative cell references too. So lookup array, just like in our last video, we had an example. Our last example, we had a lookup array where we didn't lock the cell references. Here too, as we copy it down, we want it to move, comma. And we want to look up an exact match here. And the reason why is these numbers are not sorted in ascending order. So we're going to say exact match, 0. Close parentheses. Now, you may get a duplicate here, and it would return, if there was a duplicate, it would return the first item in the list. So if there was 2 42s right here and right here, it would return the first one. Now, we're done. That's the row number. Close parentheses. Control Enter. Double click and send it down. Absolutely amazing. Is that really the? Yes, it is. It's the smallest one. How about down here? Oh, that is so beautiful to find the vendor's name with the lowest bid. All right, let's look at a couple other examples. Absolutely awesome use of the index and match function is to return, to in essence, look up a whole row or look up a whole column. Now, what do we mean by this? Sometimes you have a data set and you want to add all of the values for product 5. Well, if we had a way to look up an entire row, that would be perfect. We put it inside the sum function. If I change this to product 1, it then should look up this entire row and deliver it to the sum function. So I'm going to do the index first. And guess what? Index can do this perfectly. Index, we've seen, can do a two-way lookup and return a number. a two-way lookup and return a cell reference, or a one-way lookup and return either a number or text, right? But guess what? Index can look up not just a single value or number, but an entire row or column. You got to highlight the whole range here, right? Because we need to know all the values, comma, and then the row number. Now, row number right here, we can get the row number with the match, because here we just need to say, hey, the first one. So I'm going to say match. Look up this, comma, the lookup array is this, comma, we definitely want 0 to look up exact match. Now, right now, that would, because we have a whole table here in this argument right here, it absolutely requires that we hit comma and put something in for column number. But guess what? If you click on this little right here and go up to help, it says if you leave that blank, it'll return all the columns. So we could put in, you'd write 2, right? And then that would give us the second column, or 1 or 3. But just leave it blank, and it will give me all the columns. So what that means right now is it looks up product 1. The match function for this argument is say, hey, go to row 1. If we leave this empty, it's just going to say row 1 from the row, but the columns will say, give me all the columns. Absolutely beautiful. You just leave it blank, close parentheses. Is that so cool? Now, right now, this won't work in our cell. If I highlight it and hit F9, oh, that is so beautiful. Look at that. It returns, in essence, looked up the whole row and returned it. Well, of course, we need to Control Z and put it inside the sum. Now, the sum function can handle it. If you just entered that index that was looking up a whole row, it would just show the first value. But we want to add them, so I sum. Is that totally cool? I can highlight this and 157. Come down here, 498. I love it looking up a whole row. Looking up the whole column is the same. We just leave the row argument empty. So I'm going to look up. Here's the whole table. As soon as you put in rows and columns, not just a one-way, as soon as you put in two ways, columns and rows, you have to put both a row and a column, comma. The row number, I want all the rows. So if I look up March, I want to say column 3, but give me all the row numbers. So I just leave it blank. And then column, I'm going to use match. I'm looking up this, comma, within this, comma, 0 for exact match, close parentheses on the index. I have that. Notice, empty. That means give me all the rows. And then I put a sum around it. This is a common question, and people actually, there's a function called offset that can do this also, but I like match better. It's not volatile, which means it doesn't recalculate every time you do something in your sheet. Let's just go ahead and check this. 322, if I change this to January, there it is, 247. So looking up a whole row or column, index can do that. One last thing that we want to talk about, and we're actually going to see a new function, Alt-WG. And I have a silly little example here. Can I fit this on? OK, so I'll go like this. We have two tables. And in some situations, when you're doing lookup, you have more than one table. Now, we've seen VLOOKUP. And every time we did VLOOKUP, we had a single lookup table. We've seen match. Every time we did match, the lookup array was always one range. And we saw index. Same thing. We never had more than one range. But sometimes you have product tables or tax tables or all sorts of situations where you just plain and simple have different tables. Now, the index equals index. Actually, this one right here, and if you can go look up help how to use this, it can accommodate multiple tables. But the problem with that method is that index requires that the tables are on the same sheet. And sometimes that's not the case. So I'm going to show you an alternative. We're going to actually use this one here. But somehow for this array, I need to have something in that argument that can look up tables. All right, and we're going to use the choose function. The choose function can do this. Now, I have a 1 for table 1 or a 2 for table 2. So of course, there has to be some formula input that tells our formula which table it is you want to look up. Again, this is a silly little simple example. This obviously could be put all into one table. All right. Equals choose. Now, choose is a special lookup function. You give it an index number 1 to whatever, and you can either put for values. And so for our index number, it's going to be this. And then that cell will either have a 1 for table 1 or a 2 for table 2. And you're not going to believe it. If you go read help on this up in that little hot link, the values can be anything. You could put cell references here, ranges, define names, formulas, functions, all sorts of things. So choose is a lookup function that can look up anything. Formulas, ranges, cell references, numbers, anything. So I'm simply going to highlight my range number 1 and comma, highlight my range number 2. Now, right now, this would look just like our index. Remember, we said index could look up 2 tables on the same sheet. But if you had different sheets, you would just use our defined name tricks. And there's a couple videos ago we did define names. And you just define these as names anywhere in the workbook. And then, boom, you could use the names. All right, so that's it. I'm just going to test this right now. I'm going to highlight this and hit F9. Right now, it should give me these values right here, F9. Totally beautiful. Control Z. Now I'm going to enter this value error because a cell can't handle a bunch of values. I'm just going to change this to 1 and then come back down here and F2. And then I'm going to highlight this and hit the F9 key to evaluate. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Look, it's looked up this table and returned the values. Now, again, this trick using choose is not limited like index. Choose, you can actually put this lookup table thing into the match function, the index function, the VLOOKUP function, wherever the table is or the table array. All right, so I'm going to just do index. And there it is, the array. Let me just show you, just so you know, VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP, so we'd have, it would go into the table array argument, right? We don't have that. We're going to do index into the array. So I come over here and now, comma. And I need to have a row number. Oh, well, wait a second. Product 1. So what am I going to do here? Oh, guess what? We're going to use the match function, of course, to find the ordinal or relative position. But since we have 2 ranges here, we'll use the choose function inside of match. So I'm going to, for row number, match. Remember, in essence, we need one row 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3. Match is going to look up this every time, and then comma. Here's the situation. Anytime you get to your lookup function and the argument that's expecting the table, if you have more than one table, you just use choose. But remember, you have to have some cell that tells 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So index number, boop, comma, and then value. It's either this one for 1, comma, or this one for 2. Totally amazing. OK, so you can see I'm in the choose. When I close parenthesis, I come back to match. Oh, yeah, because I had 2 tables, this whole argument needed to be choose, comma, and I'm still looking up words, so it's exact match. Close parentheses on the match, and that's it for the row number. Remember, we only have a row number. That is just so amazing. Look at that. Now, watch this. We are going to run into a table. Notice run into a problem. Notice that product 1 is here. If I just, I have to type values in to change. So if I type a 2 here, NA. Now, I'm only going to type 2 for just a second. And then I'm going to come down here and either with data validation or type in the actual product name I want. But what if, so if you don't mind the NA, you can leave it like that as you fill out your invoice or whatever it is. But if you don't like it, then here's a great solution. And this, notice, this formula will either come out to an error or it won't. It'll look up the value. Control Z. So we can use, in that case, we can use, this whole thing is only giving two things, error or value. We can put around this the if error. Now this function came into existence in Excel 2007. In earlier versions, you had to do an if and repeat the formula, the gigantic formula, twice. And so this is much better. And all if error does is it says, hey, put the thing there. And the second argument, if I type a comma, is what do you want to put in the cell if it's an error? And I'm just going to put a blank, double quote, double quote. That's the syntax for blank. Close parentheses, Control Enter. And so now, instead of showing, I can fill out my invoice, right? And as long as these two things produce a calculation here, we're going to see the number. But if it doesn't, notice there is no product 4 in table 1. But as soon as I change this to 2, ding, 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 it looks it up. So that is an example of using the choose function to look up two tables. All right, that was an epic video. Choose function to look up two tables. We did index and match to look up a whole row or a whole column. We used index and match to look up the vendor name for a low bid. We saw how to look up left with index and match. We saw how to do index and match two-way lookup for a number or of some value from a cell. And then finally, we saw how to do index to create dynamic ranges. And in essence, the index was looking up a cell reference. All right, after those epic lookup videos, now some homework. These are for the pages 248 to 308. Homework problems 49 to 59. 11 awesome homework problems. And as always, there's the homework problem, and there's an answer. Homework problem, answer, all the way from 49 to 59. All right, we'll see you next video.